Good morning, everybody. I see we've got a couple of people jumping on, which is super cool. I'm excited to hear from all of you today and see all of you. It's our Thursday Connect call, and we are live on YouTube. So welcome. Morning, Narelle. Pop in the chats and say hello, everybody. Hey, Reese. So cool to see you. Yay. Hey, Claire. Nice. I hope you guys have been having an amazing time on the tour. Hey, Candice. So cool to see you on camera. If you are in a place where you can put your cameras on, it always makes it easier for me when I am able to see you. Then I know how my work is landing. Otherwise, I'm kind of talking into the abyss. Great stuff. Alrighty, there's Claire saying everybody. Good morning, everybody. Yay, is there anybody new on our call today that's not been on our Thursday lives before? If you are new to this call, then pop a message in the chats and say, hey, I'm new. I'm just gonna put this on. Good morning, Olga. I am going to put my headset on today just because I've got some background noise happening. Alrighty, those of you who've got a camera on, Candice, can you give me a thumbs up if you can still hear me? Awesome stuff. Right. So we have had a big, busy, almost 3 weeks. Tomorrow's the third week of the month, so it's our mini payday. And we started the month with talking about brain-friendly goal setting, and then went on, last week, to how to put that into action, how to do what I call LAPs, leads, booking, working with your leads, booking appointments, doing presentations, and then closing the sale. Today, we're going to talk about follow-ups. And your future self is going to love this. You're going to leave the call with a follow-up ladder. So watch your inboxes after the call. Around about mid-morning, you'll get a document that has all of this on it. So don't worry if you're a note taker, that's great. Take notes. Though this is, of course, live streamed onto YouTube, so you can go back and have a look at it, and you will get the link in an email this morning after the call, and you'll get the downloadables as well. We're going to talk today about something called the follow-up ladder and the rescue list. And most people don't lose business because they're bad at what they do, but some opportunities kind of fall through the cracks. Balls get dropped, right? People say, let me think about it, or I'll get back to you. And then life happens for you, life happens for them. And then that's the end of it. And suddenly 3 weeks down the line, or a month later, that suddenly for you or them, they either message you and say, oh, is that Black Friday special still happening? Or you suddenly think, oh, I was supposed to get back to this person, and now you're feeling guilty about it. How many of you have had the experience, if you've been around for a while, that you've reached out to people about Black Friday special, and Black Friday is 48 hours long, or however long it is, and on hour 52, somebody messages you to say, is that special still happening? Yes? Okay, cool. So that is normal human behavior. And we know that it's going to happen. And so what we're going to work on today is to avoid that. And so we're going to approach it from a brain-friendly perspective, because that's the place where I always start with my work. As you all know, I'm not talking to anybody new here today, though I am a neuroscience-based coach. And why I coach from that perspective is that my belief is that when we understand why the things that we're doing are effective inside our brains, it tends to lower the resistance around doing things that feel uncomfortable. And so I'm going to share with you today the mechanisms and the neuroscience behind what is happening in your brain with follow-ups, with avoiding follow-ups, and why follow-ups are so powerful, and why follow-ups are even a better way of getting a dopamine hit than doom scrolling on Instagram. because it's all about the brain. Everything we do in life is about what's happening with the brain. So we're going to start with giving your brain a little bit of dopamine. It's always a good place to start. I hope that you all did your regulation and breathing before we got on this call so that you're in a good state to learn. So for today's little dopamine hit, I would love you to type into the chats one person, the name, just the name of one person that you followed up with, and one sentence to say what happened. And I would love to read out a couple of those shares, because if you type in the chats and I call out your name, your brain is going to get super excited, because what it's recognizing is that the action that I did creates some sort of reward. And that reward in this case is social acknowledgement that you achieved something. And not only that, the feedback to your brain is, hey, I've gotten social acknowledgement, but also I remember that I got practical acknowledgement as well. There we go. I just want to mute everybody, not myself. Okay, cool. So type in the chats the name of one person that you followed up with lately and what happened. Okay, Candace Hunter. Kirsten followed up, and she is now purchasing supplements from me and a Black Friday LumiSpa. Yay! I love that, Candace. That's textbook. Michelle, she's coming for a Lumi demo on Monday. Well done, Theonor. I love that. So yes, it's in affiliates. We sell two things. We sell the opportunity and we sell our product. So if you have followed up with a prospect that you reached out to, that counts as a follow-up as well. Olga Sharp, Yolanda sent a link for the member and she has joined from Portugal. Melissa followed up with Lynn and she met Nick on Tuesday. Okay, so all of you that I've called out have already gotten yourselves a little bit of a dopamine hit. What does that mean for your brain? It means that right now, your brain is more primed to learn what I'm going to share with you. Claire Baisley followed up with Taryn. Taryn followed up with a friend who's her own business and just had a baby, same, but different, and always busy about to meet today, and she's moved things around to be meeting today. That's amazing. So this is what happens when we follow people. Iris, you've raised your hand. I think that's because you've had Black Friday people come to you on minute 99. So what is happening here when we're doing follow-ups from a neuroscience perspective? From a neuroscience perspective, your brain, as you now know, is always in prediction mode. It makes up predictions based on previous data of what it's had in its experience before. And then hey, Reese, Leslie bought a LumiSpa and came to fetch it when I scanned her, and now she's on a collagen subscription. Yay! Okay, awesome. Thank you for all of your shares, and keep them coming. And while I'm talking, you guys, give some love and social acknowledgement to all the people who did share, because that just helps them to grow their dopamine. So from a neuroscience perspective, your brain is predicting all the time what's happening. It's just thinking about, where do I move my human being to next? And it's assessing incoming data against previously historical data to know and understand what's happening. Now, the brain perceives any form of uncertainty as a threat. It doesn't differentiate between an actual threat and an unknown. So if it can't predict what's going to happen, what it's going to do is stall you. A bit like if you think about how we walk more slowly in the dark when we don't know what our footing is going to be, whereas if we can see where we're going, we're quite happy to walk at a normal pace. So when it comes to follow-up, if we don't have a formal process for follow-up, what happens is our brains are going, well, if I send this, and then they might ignore me, or they might be annoyed, or they might think I'm super pushy or super salesy, or here's one that I hear a lot. People say, I didn't want to follow up because I don't want to lose the customer. Because if I follow up too much, they're going to get annoyed with me and then I will lose the customer. And I would rather take the little bit of business that I'm getting now than upgrade them and grow the business, because I'm afraid of being rejected. And I often have people say to me, why are we so afraid of what people think of us? And it's not you. You are not somehow defective because you are worried about what people think of you. This is a part of your survival brain. What people thought of you when we were evolving as humans often meant the difference between life and death. And our brains are highly attuned then to any form of social feedback, and uncertainty around that is going to cause us to stop. And the brain uses, when the brain is under threat, it can feel similar to pain. So the pain center in our brain doesn't differentiate between physical pain and emotional pain. And so very simply, the short message that the brain is getting is, this is dangerous, this could hurt us, and we don't do it. So even if follow-up feels like a good idea to you, your body is going to respond first. How many of you have noticed, and just give me some hearts or some emojis, that you might wake up in the morning and think to yourself, okay, great, today's follow-up Friday. I nominated Friday as a way to create a cue for myself once, that Friday is follow-up Friday. And the whole week I'm going, okay, it's great, follow-up Friday, and then follow-up Friday comes, and suddenly I just don't feel like doing it. I'm tired, I'm distracted. There seems to be a heap of washing that needs to be done. Or how many of you have had this experience that suddenly your body pulls you out? Candace is sticking up her hand. Your body actually pulls you out of the task. Now, that's not a mistake. That is your body signaling to you what's going on in your brain. And all the time, our body and our brain are speaking to one another. Our brain is not different from our body. Our brain is the commander of the body, and it's all the time trying to keep us safe. So if we do not have a follow-up process, what this means is that there's high levels of uncertainty in our brain. And when there's high levels of uncertainty in our brain avoids. And so this is really why you don't get going. Now, we in Nu Skin have got a phenomenal example of what a process ladder looks like. One of the things that we have, and in fact, it's the core of our entire business, is System 7. And the reason that System 7 is so powerful is that it is exactly what I'm going to teach you today. So today you're going to learn the equivalent of a System 7 in follow-up. System 7 is our prospecting and getting started process. And inside System 7, there is follow-up as part of our system. And in fact, Theano is a master at the System 7 process. And because it's so effective, if ever you are stuck in your business, you can simply go back and go, well, where is the bottleneck in my business? And you just go up the ladder, right? Or down the ladder. So when a person starts the business of Nu Skin with us as an affiliate, the first thing we do is we set goals with them. And then we teach them how to make a prospect list. And then we teach them how to reach out to those people. And then we teach them how to follow up, and we teach them how to get started. And we teach them teamwork, right? So all of that, there's 7 steps. And anybody who's been in the business as long as, I mean, if you've been in the business a couple of months, you should know this, but many of us have had that ladder stuck on our wall. If that was you, give me a heart. For the first 5 years of my business in Nu Skin, I had System 7 in front of me at my desk. And it was literally, I just emblazoned that thing in my head. And so if ever I had an affiliate who came to me and said to me, I have a bottleneck here, then I would know, okay, if your bottleneck is there, then we just go backwards up the ladder and we unpack it that way. And then we know, okay, that's where the bottleneck is. We need to start at that point and build the ladder. And if you took System 7, you could quite literally create a ladder for each one of System 7's points for yourself. You could yourself make a ladder of, what does goal setting look like? What is my process for goal setting? We last week did, what is the process for reaching out to people? And if you downloaded the tool, you would have seen that there's a sequential number of steps. It doesn't necessarily have to be 7, but there is a sequence in that document that you downloaded last week that just helps you to know. Now, why is this important for your brain? Well, when the brain has a set of steps that are on repeat that never change, it moves that workload out of the working memory and into the basal ganglia. It becomes part of our automated system. And you'll remember that the brain is always managing, the central nervous system is in fact the central energy manager system. In reality, that's what it's doing. So the more that it can put into the basal ganglia and into our habit situation and into automation, the less drawdown and glucose usage there is in the rest of our brain. And the working memory doesn't last very long. If you've read Benjamin Hardy's book, Willpower Doesn't Work, you'll know that the working memory willpower just doesn't work. So if you're white knuckling yourself through follow-up, it's not going to work. And I'm going to give you an example. It's a little bit of an outlandish example. Gosh, it must be 20 years ago. That's quite a long time ago. My brother and my sister and my dad and I believe it, all four of us decided that we were going to do a static line skydive jump. And if you've done this, you'll know what the process is. The same thing happens in diving because I'm a dive master as well. Though one of the things they said to us is you need to understand something very simple. When you come here and do these practice things, you do it the way we teach you, because falling out of an aeroplane is contrary to everything that the brain understands. It cannot deal with the fact, it cannot compute that you will fall out of the plane and land. The minute that you leave that plane, the brain is going to go into threat mode. It is going to say, this is not a good idea. Everything in your body and brain knows that flying out of a plane is not what we do. And at that point, what we know on this call is that your prefrontal cortex and your working memory just shuts down, and all the blood flow goes into your amygdala. And in fact, if you're flying out of an airplane, all of it's going into the center of your body, because your body knows that you're probably going to break off a couple of limbs, and it wants to conserve blood flow, and it wants to make sure that you don't bleed out when you hit the ground. So there's no way that you can then consciously use your working memory to go, oh yeah, what was the next step? When I got out of the plane, I was supposed to hold on. And then, oh, was I supposed to lean back or forwards? And when was I supposed to pull? None of that is going to happen, right? So they said to us there and then, understand that your brain will be offline when you leave the plane. And the only way to counteract that is that you do this thing with us over and over and over. And you're going to think it's stupid, and you're going to think it's overkill, and it's actually what's going to get you not killed. And so we just drilled what it means to leave the plane over and over and over, and how to use the toggles, and where the straps are on your body. And we had to wear the gear, and we had to feel the gear, so that our body had the ability to just, when we left the plane, we didn't have to rely on our prefrontal cortex or our working memory. Now, this sounds like an extreme. The example of falling out of an airplane is extreme. That exercise gave me PTSD on commercial airplanes for about a year and a half later. It is an extreme thing. The brain does not like falling out of airplanes. However, the brain doesn't really have a differentiator when it comes to following up and falling out of airplanes, because social threat is so significant to us for our physical and mental survival, that when you do not have an automated process for letting that parachute go when you're phoning somebody, your body is going to literally pull you out of it. And I know this because it's happened to me over the years a million times. It still happens to me at times. If I'm dysregulated, if I'm tired, like now it's the end of the year, I've got a lot going on. When I have to do something like that, naturally so I have to rely on the processes. So here's the 7 steps, and you will get this in an email this morning. And so you can print it out and you can stick it up like you did with System 7. So the first step that you're going to do is you're going to have a same-day thank you and recap. And anybody who's in sales will know that if you've had a intro call with somebody, or you've done a Lumi Spa demo, the best thing to do is to immediately, in fact, I would say within a couple of hours, you send that. It was so great to meet with you today. Here's what we spoke about, and here's what the next steps we agreed on, right? So it's a little bit of a summary. Loved meeting you. This is what we did. This is what we agreed would be the next step. That then closes the loop for today for you and your client, and they then know what the next step is. Your next step, step 2 in your 7-step follow-up process, is to add some value to them. So the next day you can send a message saying, hey, I was thinking about you after the demo, and I wanted to let you know that in addition to all of the things we spoke about, you can also make money out of this business. If that's something you'd love to chat about, then, when we meet again on whatever day we agreed, let's chat about that as well. Or I can set up a separate call. Hey, I was thinking about you. I've got a business partner in town. I know this is probably totally left field, though, since you love the products, do you know you can make money out of it? So your value add, hey, this is totally weird, or hey, we had such a nice chat, and then I suddenly remembered you mentioning that you struggle from super dry skin in winter, and I know that the seasons are changing, and I forgot to mention that we've got this other product. Okay, so there's always going to be something you can add on to them. Number 3 is go back to them with a question. Like, hey, I wanted to check in with you. When we spoke about this, there was this thing that you mentioned. Is it still like that? Or is there more to it than that? So you can ask some clarifying questions. I wasn't sure if you wanted to get just the Lumi or the Lumi and the accent eyepiece. Words are helpful here in this context. So can you see what's happening now that if you know in your mind, and I'll go through all 7, what the next step is, when you have a bottleneck, when suddenly you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go, oh, it's Black Friday, and there was this client and I promised to get back to them and I haven't heard from them, you can go, what step was I on with them? And then it doesn't feel weird. Like, how many of you have that weirdness when you know you should have followed up with somebody and then you've kind of left it too long and it feels weird? Like, how do I reach out to this person? Yeah, exactly. We've all done it. It's called human nature. So when you have the 7 steps, you literally go, oh, okay, I know the last time that I spoke to them, I sent them the extra info about the Pillow Glow. My next step with them is to ask a clarifying question. And that's all. Then there's no weirdness about what do I say to this person. You can simply follow up and say, oh, last time I spoke to you about the Pillow Glow on top of your dry skin, I wanted to check with you if dry skin is still an issue for you. And so now there's no threat in your brain. And the minute you reduce your threat in your brain, you create regulation for your nervous system. Every client that you have not followed up with causes stress for you. And it's a low grade kind of stress. Candace is nodding. It's this low grade noise all the time in your head, like, oh man. And your brain is literally keeping that tab open. And in fact, it's not just related to this. Anytime where you have something that needs to be followed up on, whether it's making a dentist appointment or paying an outstanding account or phoning your mother-in-law, if you have an open tab in your brain, it causes stress. Yes, especially when they fall through the cracks and you know that somebody else might pick up that sale, or because you've done the first 1,000,000 exposures and now someone else sells it. So there's always this low grade stress and it starts to sound like, I'm behind in my targets, I'm behind in my work, I've got too much work to do, there's no time, I feel like I'm forgetting something. And that story of there's not enough time in the day is very often not related at all to the actual workload that you have or the available hours. It is the noise that's happening in your brain about open tabs. And the brain is insistent upon closing tabs. Why? Because an open tab is a threat, and the brain dislikes threats. And what it's learned is that the more it can close tabs, the more it can feed itself dopamine, because it means this was rewarding, and the brain likes to do rewarding stuff. Writing it down is a good and helpful way to help the brain. Exactly, Candace, exactly. And so people with ADHD or neurodivergent people, what's happening in their working memory, and this is an interesting thing to know, is that working memory's job is to hold the now stuff. And overnight, what happens is the brain sifts and sorts and goes, okay, that stuff we can bin, and this stuff we need to learn and consolidate, and we need to remember it for tomorrow. When somebody has it depends on, the ADHD in itself is on a bit of a spectrum, but when there is some sort of a neurodivergent issue happening in the brain, the working memory, when there's a distraction, bins that data. And so there's people with ADHD have higher levels of stress than people without ADHD, because there's this persistent sense that I was working on something and I forgot it. And in fact, you have the working memory, instead of holding it and storing it until you go to sleep and then consolidating that information, has binned it. It's like when you didn't put autosave on your Word document and your computer crashed. That feeling, that's what a person with ADHD, their brains are doing all of the time. So when we are going into follow-up, the 7 steps are going to be in the document that I send you because it's quite detailed. So I'm not going to go through it all specifically. The important thing to remember when you're setting yourself up for follow-up is that that same thing is happening to your client. So if you think about the level of stress that's like this low-grade hum in you about, I need to follow up with this person. If you have left a client anywhere in those 7 steps, they know. Their brain is doing the same thing that yours is doing. And they are waiting for you because, let's face it, if you've ever found yourself in a sales process, we all know, because we've done it so many times, that there is a next point of contact. We anticipate that. And so your client is literally sitting there on that side with some part of their brain waiting for the next step in this thing, because it started, but it's not done. And it's only done at the point where the client says, not now, thank you, or they make a purchase. And even then, we close that piece as done, though we keep open the next conversation, but it's open but closed, if that makes any sense. We close off this particular loop, and then we make a space for, we'll start a new loop in the future when I will then check in with you about whatever. And so the client's brain is quiet, your brain is quiet, and it only ends when they've either bought or they said, I'm definitely not buying. So how do we deal with this in our brain? And it's interesting because I was sharing with my husband this morning, with Dylan, that one-on-one coaching for me is like a magic spell. It doesn't matter what I'm going through in my life, but the minute that I'm working one-on-one with a client, everything in me changes. And I got to pondering that this morning. For years, it's been like that. I can be in the middle of the most traumatic events, and all I need is one-on-one coaching hour, and everything in me has shifted. And this morning, when I was thinking about it and preparing for this call, I realized what that is. When I am coaching one-on-one with somebody, my point of reference is no longer me. I step completely out of ego state, and I am in service of my client. And what that does in your brain is it switches the threat mechanism off, because it's no longer about me, and the whole system quietens down. Now, how can you apply this to your world? It's the same process. When you are choosing to see that what you do here at Nu Skin is to serve people all the time, we're not selling anybody anything. We're helping people get confident. We're helping people build an income stream. We're helping people put their kids through school if that's what they want to use their extra money for. We're helping people to live their best lives if they're on supplements. We are in service. And if you choose to take your point of reference away from yourself and onto the other person, literally your brain chemistry will change. And when your brain chemistry changes, that person's mirror neurons feel it. And they feel cared for, they feel loved, and they feel as though you are doing something for them. And there's an interesting thing in our brain is that, first of all, that creates oxytocin between you and the client, which means you create a bond. And secondly, there's the principle of reciprocity, which means when that person feels like you are doing something for them, they have a natural inbuilt, it's again part of our evolutionary development in our brains. We understand inherently that reciprocity keeps us alive. If I share my kill with you, then you're going to help me with something later on. And that then further serves to create an ongoing relationship. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with is, if you are stuck with follow-ups and it's a big fear point for you, use my stop mechanism. You all know what it is by now. If you don't, go look through some of the recordings. stop, tell the truth, override that with a more truth thing, and then exactly, Candace, and then proceed with what you want to do and choose the context of how can I help this person best today? How can I serve this person today? What if this is not about me? And then the person is free to choose to purchase or not purchase, though it's never about you. And you have a higher statistical likelihood of making sure that sale happens. So we are going into our Black Friday week next week. This week is follow-ups and closing all those pre-sales. And honestly, think about the person who wakes up in shock and horror 2 days after Black Friday and is annoyed with themselves because they didn't come back to you. Save them from being annoyed with themselves and just you follow up with them and make sure that they know and that they can make the choices they need to make. Have a happy week, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me.